Hey everyone, Akira here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to animate the eyes in Live2D. So here I have an old model which I've just imported into Live2D, meaning I haven't done anything to it. And the first thing you're going to notice when looking at this is the fact that the eyes stick out of the white of the eyes, the scleras, and there's actually a very simple fix to that. So, since we're dealing with the right eye, what we're going to do is click on the right sclera, and you're going to come over and see the ID. Whatever the ID is for you, you're going to want to highlight and copy it. Then we come over to the right eye, and where you see clipping ID, whatever you copied, paste that in there and click enter. Now, as you can tell, the eye is not seeping through the bottom anymore, and this will keep your eye inside of the sclera. You can do the same with the left eye as well. So now that the eye is going to stay where it's supposed to, we can move on to animating its actual movement. To make things easier on ourselves, we can click the padlock icon right here to lock everything else except the things we're going to be working with. With the eye you want to animate selected, we're going to shift our focus to the parameter section. For this movement, we're going to be covering the eyeball X and eyeball Y parameters. Much like in the math classes that we all hated so much, the x-axis, that's so hard to say, x-axis covers horizontal movement, while the y-axis covers vertical movement. Let's start with horizontal movement first. So with the eyeball X parameter selected, click this icon to add 3 keyforms to the parameter. As you can see, if I click another object that does not have the keyforms inserted into the parameter, the keyforms will not be highlighted. It's a very important thing to know so that you're aware of what objects have keyforms in which parameters. Now that we have our keyforms, we can actually start animating the movement. I want to make this eye move to the right, so what I'm going to do is come over to the parameter and right-click the keyform all the way on the right to highlight it. Now on the eye, by using left click and shift to work on one axis, we can move the eye to the right. I think that's as far as I want to move it. So now when we come over to the parameter and we slide it, we can tell that the eye now on this keyform moves to the right. This is basically what keyforms are. When you select one and you move an object, it tells the program, this is where I want the object to be when this keyform is highlighted, and Live2D creates the movement accordingly. Now how about we do the same thing on the left side, shall we? So highlighting the keyform all the way on the left, and using left click and shift, we move our eye however much to the left we want it to move. And now if we slide the parameter, we can see that we have full horizontal movement. We can do the same thing on the left eye to create animation for that one as well. Now that our eyes have movement to the left and right, let's come over to the eyeball Y parameter to give them up and down movement. The same concepts apply here, except one thing to note is that the keyform all the way on the right is going to be for up movement, and the keyform all the way on the left is going to be for down movement. So with that, follow along with what I'm doing, and I hope you understand as well. Having both horizontal and vertical movement, there's one more step we need to do before we have full circular movement. Let's click on this chain link icon to link both of our parameters. Now, with this done, you can click one of the corners and tell that our eyes don't exactly follow along. You can animate the corners manually, but there's actually a very simple fix to this. Select one of your eyes, then press shift and click the other to select them both at the same time. Then we come over up to modeling, parameter, and synthesize corners. When this window pops up, make sure it looks the same as mine, with parameter 1 set to eyeball X and parameter 2 set to eyeball Y, then click OK. After doing that, we can tell now that the eyes actually follow the keyforms in the corner, and now we have full circular movement in our eyes. With the movement of the eye complete, we are now going to be moving on to blinking. This is a little bit more complicated, so make sure you're paying attention and follow along. Once again, we're going to be locking everything except the things we're going to be working with, which are the left eyelash, the right eyelash, and the left and right sclera. Now, this is where we start getting into art mesh and mesh edit. So we're going to be making the right eye blink for now. So select the top eyelash of your right eye. We're going to be making a mesh for it, and we can do that by clicking the automatic mesh generator here at the top. Now here in this window, we have 3 presets: standard, little, and heavy. We're going to be using heavy for now. Now, with our mesh created, we can start this movement by going over to the IR open parameter. For this one, we're going to add 2 keyforms. The keyform on the right is for your eye to be open, and the keyform on your left is for your eye to be closed. We want to create the closing animation, so we're going to have the left one highlighted. The first thing we want to do is move the eyelid down by using left click and shift. Next, we're going to be using a tool called Deform Path Edit, which has this icon right here at the top. However many sections you add will depend on how your eyelash looks like, but for me, I think I'm going to need 4 dots. Once you have all your points set, we can click back on the mouse icon. Now this feature allows us to deform the art mesh very easily, as you can tell, and we can get the right shape that we want for our eyes being closed. If little details don't look to your liking, we can edit each vertices individually to change how the art mesh looks. So now, if we go over to our parameter, we can see that our eyelash now has this movement. Now to actually hide the eye, we're going to be working with our sclera. And let's give it a mesh as well. We're going to go with heavy. Now let's give our sclera 2 keyforms as well in the IR open parameter. And because at the beginning of the video, we used the ID of our sclera to clip our eyeball, now when we shrink the size of the sclera, the eye should shrink with it as well. Make sure that when you do this, you have the right keyform highlighted. Now with that done, let's see how our movement looks like. As you can tell, we have a blinking animation now. And as I said earlier, for the finer details, you can edit each vertices individually to really make your animation look as good as you want it to look. But for this tutorial, I think this blinking animation is fine. Now this eyelid up here, we can actually make it go down alongside with the blinking of your eye. So let's unlock it and select it. We're going to be creating a mesh for it. Let's go with heavy as per usual. And let's give it 2 keyforms in the IR open parameter. With the left one highlighted, let's move it down, shall we? Now the reason why I created a mesh for it, it's because I want to get rid of this little protrusion when the eye closes. So I'm going to be editing the vertices individually here to make it so it's just one straight line when the eye closes. So bear with me here for a second. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. And now let's give it a little diagonal, a bit of a diagonal angle for when the eye closes. And now that's what it should look like. Okay, so now our right eye has full blinking, and we can do the same thing on the left side to create the same animation. Keep in mind though that when you're working on the left side, you're going to be using the IL open parameter instead of IR open. Alright, so we covered eye movement and we covered blinking as well, so I hope you found this tutorial helpful, guys. This is Akira, signing out. Goodbye!
Hiya.